Hey, what's going on? It's your favorite guy, Kurt the Jerk, or the local idiot, whatever you want to call me. Today we're gonna talk about injustice, Chronicles about Black America and the situations that we go through and what is continuing happening now. But I want to drop back into a little bit of history so we could talk about how we got here, because that's what I think is very important to try to see if I can piece it together the best to my ability, with the information that I have in front of me. So we'll see what we can do. I guess we're gonna start from the '60s, because the '60s is a turning point when everything just started changing in the black community. You know, prior civil rights bill and stuff like that, when it was segregated, and there was a lot of cities on fire, like Newark, New Jersey was progressive. There was a lot of different cities rioting and protesting and burning things down. And it's not because they just want to do that. They was doing it because there was so many different circumstances that was happening. There was a lot of racial inequality, a lot of racial injustice. So people got tired of it. They got fed up. And when you look at it, you see a lot of freedom fighters back then. A lot of people fighting, antagonizing the government to do something about the condition of the people. And then that's when they came out with the crime. Not said the crime bill. That's when they came out with civil rights. They had a bill before that, but I'm not even gonna talk about that. I was like further back. But we're gonna talk about '65. We're gonna talk about that. That was very important. Them getting the civil rights bill. It fell on its face the first time because they tried to do it before, and then they had to add white women as considered a minority and gay white males as considered a minority in order to get the bill passed. But initially, it was just for black people only, but they had to add more into it to get it passed. Nevertheless, it had a significant change, and it helped the American people to some extent, especially help black people. So I'm grateful of whatever this government gives us, because there's so much issues and there's so many things that went on afterwards. Is crazy, like pointing out the red tape, the red line in certain districts, couldn't get loans, getting deindustrializing factories and stuff like that. This is the '60s leading into the '70s. Like once you start hitting the '70s, J. Edgar Hoover didn't want nobody like Dr. King to happen again. I don't mean to skip, but just to think. And when Dr. King passed away, J. Edgar Hoover was like, "Who's this guy? I don't want nobody like him again." So what they did is they created all kinds of dysfunctionalities in the black community, because they had to do a study. They had, where this money's coming from? Like who's funding all these freedom fighters to go out there and do all these marches and protests and stuff like that? And it was black factory workers, a lot of factory workers, mom and dad. If you come from the baby boom era, you probably lived that working in a factory, or your parents working to a factory, making decent money, being able to take care of the family. Factories paid good back then. They actually lived better than we did financially with a little bit amount of money that they had back then versus what we have now. The system has changed when it came to that, but it was more independent. But not necessarily by choice. It was more like because things were segregated, we had no choice but to work together. Moving forward, you got J. Edgar Hoover doing that. He died on his deathbed trying to destroy the black community and stuff like that, and he did a significant number on us. So in '73, once a lot of the factory jobs closed down, a lot of black people was unemployed, especially black men, the head of the household. Because people this is by design. This is not something that we decided one day for our women to lead us financially. No, because when you look at any other race, the man is the head of the household financially. The man out earns their counterpart. But in our situation, we don't out earn anything. We actually make less than our women, and that's by design. They flipped everything upside down on us and stuff like that. So when they made men inadequate because they couldn't make money in the '70s, what they did is they created the welfare system that was more of like a handicap, and it made it easier for a woman, a black woman, not to deal with her husband or mate, because the whole thing is, in '73, when they came out with the welfare system, ain't no daddy in your house, ain't no man in your home, the government would take care of you. That was beneficial for women that didn't have men, but it was also catastrophic to the black community because it made it easier for us not to stick together. You know what I'm saying? Because normally, if we both poor, we have no choice to try to get this shit right, you know. But instead, I'm gonna give you money. As long as you don't have a man in your household, I'll give you money and the government will take care of you. And that's what they did. And moving forward, that kind of like flipped everything upside down. And then you got the 80s with the drug system. You know, 80s, they pumped drugs into our neighborhood. You know, a lot of stuff is proven fact. They pumped drugs into our neighborhood. They put guns in our neighborhood. Poverty was an all-time high because remember, people not inherited criminals. It's the environment. Always remember that, whether it's a black neighborhood or white neighborhood, it all depends on the environment that you come from. Because if you come from a decent, wealthy, well-to-do environment, the likelihood of you going out there and committing all these types of crime, at least on a small scale, is going to be very slim because your community has the resources it needs. So all you have to do is starve the community of the resources, and you have situations like this. You got the drugs put in the neighborhood. A lot of people, you know, didn't know what crack was back then. What it was called, freebase, right? Back in 81, that's when it was really starting to pop off. People really didn't know what it was. It was like, what is this freebase? Oh, this makes me feel good. And the slogan back then was, first time is free, the next time is a fee. Because that means that once you take it the first time, you get that hit and it lasts for 10 minutes, now you hook. Now you need that drug over and over again, and it start turning the black community into zombies and stuff. That's what really messed us up. It's catastrophic. Even I grew up with a lot of my friends, parents wasn't even living in it. They was out in the street, gone for a week. I remember situations where my moms had to feed some of the kids in the hood, you know. They come to my house to get something to eat because their parents is on drugs and they haven't been home in a week or two, so they still hungry. They want to eat. So my mom's used to feed. I had a few friends that would never say their names on here on social media. I'm just stating the obvious that it was really messed up back then. I grew up. I'm 44 years old. I grew up in that era when the drugs was hitting crazy. And then to make it worse is that they came out with all these diagnosis like ADHD. No, not ADHD. They came out with ADD, and then 87 they changed it to ADHD because they wanted to give our kids medication. Because when they came out with attention deficit disorder, there's really nothing supposedly on record that you're supposed to give for drugs. But once they came out with the attention hyperdeficit disorder, that's when they start giving the kids drugs to slow down the brain natural process. So that's what they did. They pretty much drug us, lock us up for the drugs we selling, and then taking that same drugs and drugging our kids with it in the school system. You know what I'm saying? It was scary, man. It was scary back then. You know, I knew a lot of kids I knew a lot of cats that I grew up with had a lot of potential, but they just didn't have the backing. They didn't have positive people around them to keep them in the right neighborhood. So it's crazy because I see a lot of us leave the neighborhood and then frown upon people that's in the neighborhood. I got news for you guys. If it was easy to leave the hood, everybody would have done it already. Everybody wants better. You know, you can't sit there and say that some people choose to be in a predicament. No. How it works is if you know better, you do better. And most people in the hood don't know better. They don't know better. They don't understand. And that's why they live in the situation they're in. But it's not completely their fault. When we start putting it off as an individual person, oh, this person's wrong, this person's wrong. Yeah, they wrong for certain decisions they make, but as a people, we need to create an environment where it gives you more resources. What these neighborhoods need, these poor neighborhoods, because think about it. The poor neighborhoods are over-policed. So you got police officers locking people up that's trying to do the right thing, that has nothing to do with crime. They trying to be the right, you know, and once you lock them up and give them a record, now they join everybody else to doing the same bad stuff. Why? Because the only opportunity to try to get the hood and try to do the right thing, you slapped them on the wrist. I mean, you got them and locked them up and gave them a record because you were under the assumption that they're criminal like a lot of people in the neighborhoods. So yeah, we know that the poor neighborhood got a lot of crime, but a lot of people is reactionary with their mindset. They always just think about, okay, it's a lot of crime, we need to just lock everybody up. No, that's not the answer. The answer is the why. Why there's so much crime in these neighborhoods? What is going on? What is the agencies that's responsible for putting funding into these neighborhoods. Because remember, these poor neighborhoods still pay taxes. A lot of people pay taxes. And a lot of these urban neighborhoods have a lot of people that's working. Why is it that this neighborhood is lacking resources? You know what I'm saying? It's the public officials. That's the reason why it's lacking resources. Because there's no way a city that got like 20 to 30, a city that has almost 1 million people doing really bad, when a lot of these people are working, they might not be getting paid a lot of money, but they working jobs, paying taxes. Where those taxes are going, they're going into other neighborhoods. So that's one of the issues right there. If they really want to clean up the neighborhood, they need to start creating more resources in the neighborhood. And I'm not talking about just giving people handouts, because I don't call it handouts. You know why? Because everybody's taxpayers. Even some people that's in the welfare system, they still work a job and they still pay into the tax system. You know, I just think that it needs to be transformed. It needs to be more productive. Like, for example, if we're going to provide people with welfare programs, let's add more stuff to it. Let's say, okay, well, you have to get a free education. Like we used to say, if you're in a poor neighborhood and you're in the system, you should be able to get some free programs. Like, all right, we're going to give you a trade. You want to trade? All right, we're going to pay for you to go to school for trade. And as long as you do good in school, we're going to keep your benefits going until you get the proper job so you could get out the system. The key to the welfare program is not to continue giving people welfare. It's to help them get out of the welfare system. That's what we should be focused on. I don't see enough of that, and I don't see enough effective programs. You know, so I think it is important to give money to the hood. I think it's important. I just think how it's being implemented need to make some changes. But nevertheless, if you left the hood and you're doing good, don't sit there and think that everybody can do the same thing you can. You can't. Because if I sit there and say, oh, so why are you not a millionaire? Why are you not getting that money? I could sit there and talk shit about you like, oh, I'm a millionaire. Why are you not a millionaire? We come from the same hood. So you poor because you're not where I'm at. No, I'm not going to sit there and play big bank, little bank with you. I'm going to sit there and say, oh, you made out the hood? Okay, that's what's up. You know what I'm saying? But the whole idea is that don't think for a minute that everybody can do what you can do. Everybody's circumstances is different. And if we start judging everything on an individual basis, we'll never get nowhere. We have to do something systematically for the hood. The way that the government is responsible for a lot of dysfunctionalities, I think the government's responsibility to do something on some type of scale to help the black community. You know, I'm not talking about reparations. I'm not even going to jump on that topic. All I'm talking about is that they created this and we pay taxes into the system. Our tax dollars should go back into our poor neighborhoods to be able to help it and stop going into these other neighborhoods and stuff, because that's what's happening. You know, poor funding for school. It's poor funding for a lot of stuff, but remember, it's a lot of money that's being taken from our taxes in these cities. So that's something that needs to be addressed. But let me change the topic a little bit. I want everybody, when they get a chance, I want them to look at the Kerner Report. The Kerner Report was a report that was created and in which it's supposed to determine what is the issues back in the 60s, like why they was doing so much rioting, and it's basically because of racial equality. You know, they see all the issues and stuff like that. So the report is out. It breaks down all the outline and the details of what happened to black people and why black people in these circumstances they are in now. And I tell everybody it's important to go check it out. It's a very good read. And if you don't have time to sit there and look at the report, maybe you can get audio. I think they got the audio books on it. I think you can look at the audio and then listen to it. Like if you're at work or if you're doing something, at least you get to listen to it and get a great understanding what's going on. So Lyndon B. Johnson was curious. He was like, I wonder what the hell is going on. Like why black people keep on rioting so much and you know, burning stuff down. And that's what it was. And that's why they made that report. Not that Lyndon B. Johnson cared to like fix the conditions. He just want to know why is it happening in the first place. Because that was another thing. He didn't really care about fixing our conditions. Even with the Civil Rights Bill, from what I was told, allegedly, he called it the nigger bill. That's what he called the Civil Rights. Even though he signed it, he called it the nigger bill. And remember, that Civil Rights Bill was only signed because it benefits other people besides black people. You know? Now, moving forward, when you look at this administration now, it looks as though they reversing anything that has to do with somebody that looks like me, right? Black. Even though a lot of black people is clueless of what DEI really is, they're under the assumption that a lot of black people is just being hired because of their skin color. No, they're being hired because of their own merit, meaning that there's a lot of white people that apply for a job. There's a lot of black people who apply for a job, but chances are the white person gonna get the job, not because he's more qualified, only because he's white, meaning that it was racial discrimination in job hiring practice. That's the reason why we created a system where we could equal opportunity and stuff like that. That's why they created that in the first place. It wasn't because we taking away jobs for anybody. It's just that start looking at us too. Like when you start looking at the job pool and you see all these people, these candidates here, but you see that all these ones are white and the rest is black, and you don't want to hire none of them because they're black. No, look at our credentials. Hire us for our merit, but consider us and don't look at our color. Look at the qualifications that we have, because there's a lot of highly qualified black people in a lot of different positions that got their job not necessarily because of being black. They got it because they actually have more credentials. But one of the biggest fears that I was told by a lot of different professionals is that a lot of times when they see a black person applying for a position, is intimidating to other races because they know that we're coming with probably twice the education. And it's not because we're smarter. No, we just know that this world is unfair when it comes to people that look like us. So we tend to be overqualified for the positions we're applying in the first place. So that's part of the issue too. A lot of times we apply for these jobs, we more than enough qualified. We probably got more qualifications than the person that's hiring us. But that's part of the reason too. I think they don't want to hire us because they're afraid we're going to take their position, or they don't want to hire us just because of our color. But either way, DEI helped in hiring people that look like us in a lot of different positions and a lot of different jobs that wasn't even hiring people that look like us. So when people say, oh, well, black people only make up 6% of the DEI system, guess what? That 6% is like 70, 80% of the black race here in America. 50 million of us, many of us benefit off of this. So I want you guys to really sit there and do your research and do your math, do your math over again. And right now, today is September 7th, right? September 7th, today's September 7th. And right now the job market, for black unemployment is at an all-time high. So people like, why black unemployment is very high, especially middle class, right? Because how many people is aware that middle class black jobs is usually federal, state, and local jobs? That's where you get the black middle class. Without federal, state, local jobs, you don't have a black middle class. So what this administration did was going after any DEI systems of contracts, federal contracts, or the DEI, or anything that has to do with black people, because that's the code language that I take. I don't take it as, well, there may be white women that benefited or because when you look at it, or veterans or disabled veterans, when you look at it, the only people that's getting fired left and right is people that look like me. So they might tell you it's DEI, but that's just code language for black. You know what that is. Like, come on, y'all can read between the lines. Let's be realistic here. Just look around you, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you don't need to be consumed with people's words. Be more consumed with people's actions. Look at the actions of this administration. It's scary. It's scary what they're doing, and when you look at, Project 2025, there's a lot of crazy stuff in there. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, yo, this shit is really happening. Like, they're really doing this. And then they putting in a lot of white nationalists. And you have a right to have whatever beliefs you believe in. But if you're getting in government, your job is to service everybody. And that makes it kind of scary to have a white nationalist in our government. And there's quite a few of them in key roles in the government positions. So all I need you guys to do is do your research. And anybody that supports this administration as black, y'all need your head examined, because they trying to erase everything. They trying to even erase history. They trying to even erase, if you teach anything about black accomplishment in school, that's considered DEI, and the school system can lose their funding from the federal government because that's considered DEI, which is not, because black history is American history too. We made some things here too. We created quite a few things that people benefit to this day. The cell phone, the helicopter, so many different things we invented, but we don't take credit for it. So it's kind of sad that under the law of DEI, they trying to take everything away. Even the Smithsonian, which is, I think, a black museum, they trying to restructure that and say, oh, well, they make racism look so bad. It was bad. I can imagine it was worse than what the Smithsonian is showing. So I don't know why he's even worried about it. And then what bothers me more than anything, if this country is on the right course, then why is that they reversing all these war heroes? Remind you, a lot of these names of these military bases are war heroes that served this country, they served the Union, and they did the right thing for America, right? Why are you getting rid of their names and put Confederate generals and Confederate people back on these military bases? That don't make no sense at all, because Confederacy, last time I checked, they're the losers, right? Didn't they lose? And was they opposing against the Union, opposing against America's democratic system? So why is it that we using their names on military bases? That's wrong. That's the reason why it was switched in the first place. It didn't make sense. But that's what they're doing right now. So if anybody don't think that this is becoming a more white nationalist America, just keep on, just sit there and wait. Give it some time. If you're not a believer now, you'll be a believer later. I promise you, because it's getting worse. This is supposed to be America for everybody. We are a society of immigrants. A lot of us are immigrants. I'm not one. I'm indigenous to this land, but there's a lot of people that's not indigenous to the land that also pay their taxes and do the right thing. So locking people up in mass deportations and stuff like that, and it's just scary. It's scary. Like, this is scary times. I'm not scared, but I won't say scary. That's a bad choice of word. I say it's very concerning, like watching how this country is being played out. Because even when this administration is out of office, just to think, it's going to be so much cleanup involved that it's going to take a couple of different administrations to fix the problems that's happening right now. They just changed the Pentagon to what? Department of War? What the hell? I understand it was considered that back then, but back then we had wars like crazy. I remember, because people say, "Oh, what y'all talking about? Back in the 1940s, it was considered Department of War back then." I said, "Yeah, because we was in a war time. Now we're supposed to be more in a peace time, where we don't even drop nuclear bombs and stuff like that." So for that reason, it's supposed to be Department, DOJ. But I guess they changing it, and it don't make no sense at all. What's that in telling that if you put Department of War, that means that we ready to go to war with other countries for what? It just doesn't make sense. I thought this administration was talking about they're gonna be the peace administration. This is all about peace. They're gonna end wars. It seems like they're provoking, and it look like they're starting wars. So it's gonna be some crazy couple of years ahead of us, because this is just this is a matter of months right now, and it's already crazy. So I could imagine next year and the year after, like, we got to do this for 4 years in 2028. Whoa, right? Or 3 years, 2028. So it's kind of crazy right now. So I guess we see what happens, and all I can say is hope that things change. The midterms is coming up, and hopefully we can get some people in there that want to affect change. Because I'd like to see that. I'm loving the country, some of the unity that I see, that the Democrats and the Republicans are like Republican places are like, yo, this is crazy. Like, we didn't sign up for this. We losing money. You got farmers right now. Because remember, USAID, right? Do anybody understand what USAID functions was, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, who care about USAID? No, USAID give money to farmers so farmers can, because farmers tend to grow more crops than America needs, right? So they take those crops that they grow, and USAID pays them for it, and they take that crops and they bring it overseas to feed other countries and stuff like that. And you're like, why would you want to feed other countries? It's called soft power. You want soft power, meaning that you want to be able to have a military base in all the countries all over the place. So you want all the countries all over the place to rely on you. You know why? Because that's how you keep your power. How can you be a superpower if you're not influencing others, right? So that was one way of influencing the food. And remind you, when they're talking about, oh, that's expensive, we need to cut that out, that was only 1.5% of our budget. 1.5% of our budget, y'all screaming and crying over that? Come on, man. And then look what they're doing right now. Tax, what is it? Tax for the rich. Rich is getting less taxes. They're getting tax break. Coming up to trillions of dollars, but you cutting our social programs, our social benefits. That don't even make any sense to me. I'm confused. Like, we paying taxes. We busting the ass paying taxes, especially if you're middle class like me. I guess you probably pay, allegedly, I think you pay the most taxes in the country. So we busting our butt paying all these taxes. So rich people that's much fortunate than us that doesn't even need, they got more money that they don't even know what to do with it, get more breaks, while people like us have to kill ourselves even more. What sense do that makes? You know, this is, I don't know, man. This country's turning to shit, it looks like, you know. So I love this country. I'm a patriot. I love America. You know, I'm a patriot America. But this right here is just not it, man. They need to do better than this. It's crazy. I know Dr. King probably turned over in his grave because this government officials always want to use Dr. King so much as an example, but yeah, y'all killed him. And it's been proven that our U.S. government is responsible for the death of Dr. King. It's been proven in court. So I want you guys to research that too. So it's like they tell you, oh, why you can't be like Dr. King? And then when you become a person like Dr. King, then they kill you. That don't even make sense. But I think the reason why they killed Dr. King, they didn't really care about him talking about, oh, we need to come together and this and the third. Once he started talking about that bag, that's when they killed him. When he started talking about money and stuff like that, the poor man's protest that he was going to lead. And it wasn't just a black protest. It was for everybody, whites, blacks, because we all have something in common. We don't got shit. You don't got shit, I don't got shit. You sit there and talk shit about me, talking about I'm swallowing all the programs. But nevertheless, when you look at it, the dominant society, which is white people, they are, because they're numerical majority, is more of them on these social programs than us. And then you got blue states, where the blue states have a lot of its own internal social programs funded by the state because the state makes its own money. But you got a lot of red states that's dependent on the U.S. government, right? And a lot of blue states support the red states. So at the end of the day, we all in this together. We all support each other. We need to just help. We need to stop coming off that red and blue stuff, because that Democrat and Republican stuff is corny right now. I'm mad at the Democrats and the Republicans. They're a whole totally different party. They're unrecognizable to me. I don't even recognize this party. You know, I was a Republican before, but I don't even recognize them. Like, I don't recognize them at all. Like, if you can recognize them, hey man, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. And Democrats, I'm having a hard time recognizing them too, because they seem to be so weak right now. We need them to be more progressive. Focus on the issues here in America. I could care less about shit that's happening overseas more than I care that's happening here. I feel bad about other countries, but what about here? What about America? We getting our programs cut right now. This is effed up. I only care about here right now. Right now, I only care about America right now. Let's America first right now. When Trump said America first, let's do America first, not America everywhere. Do America first. If you say you're gonna clean it up and do what you're gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? But this is not what you cutting the airlines. You taking the airlines off the hook. Like, for example, if I fly somewhere, or if I gotta fly and it gets delayed, normally you get compensated, or if they get canceled, they compensate you, right? The airlines, this administration is getting rid of that, so now the airlines can do whatever they want. So if they cancel your flight, they don't have to pay you for any inconvenience or nothing. And remind you, that was put in by the Biden's administration. Pete Buttigieg put that in because he felt that the airline was doing a disservice to the American people. So he put that in to help us, you know? I mean, I'm not a fan of that administration either, but yo, they did some things to help us. And then another people, did anybody hear about Consumer Protection Bureau, right? The judge gave them an okay to do mass layoffs there. But remind you, those that's not even federally funded. Consumer Protection Bureau was funded by the Fed. You know what I'm saying? And they did a great job coming after these big corporations that was robbing us. I even got money from Wells Fargo. I can mention their name. I got a settlement from them. You know, I didn't even know I was entitled to a settlement, but I ended up getting one, and a lot of other people got settlements. And they're not just Wells Fargo. There are a lot of different companies. The only good thing I can say about Wells Fargo is they did course correction. Not only that, they gave all that money back, they also funded, I think, 500 or 400 million into black communities or something like that for loans or businesses. They did some type of program like that. And I was like, oh, okay, Wells Fargo. All right, do your thing, man. You deserve to get mentioned, you know, in a good way. All right, you did some bad. All right, you doing some good. I don't know how the whole structure was, but when I heard about it, I thought that was great. that they trying to do something for the black community. I don't know if it's intentional because they care about us, but whatever the reason is, because they're doing it, I'm okay with that, you know, because I understand it's business at the end of the day. Like, they could care less about people's race, I'm assuming. But yeah, man, I just tell everybody, don't be so quick to say, oh, I made it out the hood, you should make it out the hood. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Because I don't expect you guys to understand computer programming and writing programs, or if you're a plumber, I don't understand everybody know how to do plumbing. You have to go to school for that. You have to get some kind of training for that. Everybody don't have the opportunity to have the time to go and get training. Sometimes people working 2 crummy jobs, and then I ain't gonna lie, a lot of these kids are raising themselves right now. And that, like I said, we need to start electing better public officials in the poor neighborhoods. That helps. I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but that helps. You know why? Because it shouldn't be that many McDonald's in the neighborhood. It shouldn't be that many liquor stores on every corner. It shouldn't be all that. All that is contributing to the way we spend, because it's like it's keeping us in a circle. We make our little money, we go to check cash and cash our check, we go to the liquor store, and then we go get something to eat. That shouldn't be our cycle. That's how you stay caught up in the same situation. But a lot of people don't know better. And in order for you to do better, you got to know better. And nobody's teaching that in the hood. You got some people just saying, man, I wish it was a better way. But they just don't know how to get out of it. They don't know how to get out of their situation. You know? So I don't want you blaming the hood because, yeah, it's messed up. Yeah. But if y'all talk about black on black crime, remember, it's crime in close proximity. Any poor neighborhood you got in America is going to have crime, right? You got white communities, you know, and I'm not just saying trailer park. You got white poor communities all over the place, too, as well, that has a high level of crime, too, you know, and a lot of murder. They murder each other a lot, too. When they say black people kill each other, 90-something% of the time? Well, guess what? They at 89%. They right behind us. White people kill each other enough. And if we want to talk about international, look what these countries with these white people killing each other left and right. So we're not the only ones with that whole black on black. I don't even like using that word. You know why? Because you know how you can get rid of black on black crime? Fix the fucking environment. Clean up the damn environment. Make the environment better. Create more education systems. Create more programs. And really go into the community and change people thinking of, way of thinking. You clean up the neighborhood, you change the mindset, then you have some opportunities for the neighborhood to be less crazy. Because people killing each other because of lack of resources, lack of education, and lack of a lot of stuff. So you change the conditions of the people, or you change the conditions of the neighborhood, the environment, then guess what? More kids come out of this environment and they're going to be in a better position. They're not going to be so quick to commit crime because they're in a better environment. Not everybody is a born criminal. Like what this administration saying about, they like Chicago and those places, they naturally born criminals. No, if you brought up in a poor neighborhood, like you put me in a rich neighborhood, what's the likelihood of me going out and shooting somebody? Very slim. You know why? Because I'm brought up in a neighborhood that has all its resources. So it's about resources and education. That's the number one situation of the black man right now, the black woman, the black man and their condition in the neighborhood. You fix that and teach financial literacy. That's the biggest thing of all, financial literacy, because the average black person spend their money more than they should and stay in their same position. So even if they get a raise, they're going to still spend more money, because that's not even an average black person. That's just the average American in general. The average American just spend. So even if they get a raise at their job, you ever notice, like, you making $50,000 a year, right? Now you get a raise. Now you making $60,000 a year. You're excited. Yo, I just made $60,000 a year. But after a couple of months go by, you're like, yo, well, I'm still broke. You know why you're still broke? It's because you're spending. You have a spending problem. Most Americans have a spending problem. We focus on fixing our spending problem and stop buying shit that we don't need, we'll be in a better position. I'm not saying that's everybody's position, but most of us, it's how we spend our money. But I'm gonna let you guys go. I didn't want to make this video so long, but I just had some concerns and I just wanted to talk about a few things. So when y'all get a chance, look at the Kerner Report and tell me what you think about it, All right? Peace and God bless everybody. Everybody have a safe and wonderful and productive